Hey, my name is Matthew from Living Bridges Counseling and Coaching, and I want to spend a little time talking today about a concept that was really useful to me both as a human and particularly as a father. And it's this idea that I think a lot of people, and particularly men, don't get exposed to. But it is the idea that your time in the womb as a baby is a third of your life. Now, before I get into that, I want to give a little bit of background. I always say to my clients that we become fathers as soon as we begin to consciously make space for our children, to consider them. So, when I was in third grade, I was really struggling learning how to tell time. And I remember being so frustrated and overwhelmed with that because I wasn't going to be able to teach my kids how to tell time. So even in third grade, I was thinking about being a father. And I say this to men in my practice all the time, and I say this to men that I talk to, that you can become a father long before you even meet the mother of your child. Okay? So to fast forward a little bit to this idea that your time in the womb is a third of your life. So if you think about it like this, that the amount of changes that we go through from conception all the way through to being a full-term infant, around 40 weeks, 9 months, is roughly equivalent to the amount of changes that we go through from birth all the way to being a physically mature adult, so 18, 23 years old, which is roughly equivalent to the amount of changes that we go through from physical adulthood all the way till elderhood, however long we're lucky to live, but lifespan these days is 70-ish years old, okay? So, I know some of you are saying, like, what do you mean, like, the womb is a third of my life? It's not a third of my life, it's 9 months. It looks like such a small fraction of a 72-year-old, 72-year lifespan. But if you think about it like time signature, that's one way that helps. So, right now, the average resting heart rate of a human adult is, somewhere around 80, 70 beats per minute, okay? The heart rate of an elite athlete is somewhere around 40 beats per minute, okay? The heartbeat of a fetus is around 130 to 150 beats per minute. I remember the first sonogram of our child. I didn't know it was a girl at that point. And we're listening, and I got to hear the heartbeat, and it was bum 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 bum. I mean, it was like a hummingbird's heart. And so if you think about the time signature that a fetus is in, it's having all of these experiences. There is so much change. There's so much learning. There's so much imprinting that's happening during the womb time. A cellular epigeneticist and a real mentor of mine, someone I admire, is a man named Bruce Lipton. And he wrote a book called The Biology of Belief. And in that, he says something along the lines of that the fetus is building a body in the womb that is ideally suited to survive in the world as its mother and by extension as the parents perceive it. So I'll say that again. Basically, the baby's building a body in the womb that is preparing itself to survive in the world as its parents are perceiving it, primarily the mother. So if you think about it, the mother's having all of these feelings and experiences and chemistry and emotions and food and environment, physical environment, that is imprinting on her, and she's having all of that move through her and into the womb, and it's affecting the baby. The baby's learning about the world, and it's getting a head start, so to speak, evolutionarily, to be ready for whatever world the mother's living in. Now, that totally includes the father. The father's state of mind, the father's presence or absence, the father's emotion, the relationship between the parents, all of that is imprinting itself on the baby. It's letting it know, am I welcome here? Do I belong? Is there a space for me? Can I feel comfortable in You know, for me as a father, and this is a personal story, it was really hard for me while we were pregnant, in the very beginning, to have my child in my wife's body. And I don't mean that from a sexist way. What I mean is, like, this baby was so precious to me. And to have something so precious in someone else's body and under their control, I kind of use this information, quite honestly, I micromanaged my wife. I was a bit of a jerk for a period of time. I'd be like, you know, you need to drink more water, drink this tea, go to sleep, don't watch that movie. You know, it wasn't the most helpful thing, I'm sure, you know, my wife will attest to at times, but also it informed me to care about that. It informed me to, like, put my hands on my wife in a loving way, to remind her that I love her, to tell my baby that I loved them and I was listening to them and I was ready for them and I was there for them through my touch of my wife, of this child's mother. So, you know, this information, when we get it as men, it can be a little overwhelming. We're like, oh God, I don't want to mess everything up. But there's a way that you can think about, like, it's this opportunity to directly imprint onto your child before they're even born. You can have a relationship with your child before they are physically born. I can say that 100% because I felt that way in my life, with my experience with my child. And it was so helpful for all sorts of reasons. But one reason that was very helpful, I think, for a lot of men in general, but any parents really, women too, you know, there can be this moment after the birth where you have this living, breathing, wet, crying, alive thing, you know, this being that is huge. I said it was amazing, you know, it was like having a giant in the room, it felt like. And if you haven't had a relationship or consider them, it's already a huge responsibility. But the first time you see this kid, if you haven't been preparing for it in some way, it's like, it's the scariest thing that I've ever experienced. The most love and the most fear, easily. If you've been connecting with your child consciously and have a relationship with them, that time of birth can feel like just the next stage of your relationship. And it helps men get a head start. It helps everyone in the family, because a lot of times, you know, men come to me and it's like they haven't even begun to develop a relationship with their kid until they're about 2 or 3 years old, when they're talking, they're smiling, they're interacting with them. You know, that's when guys start to feel engaged. This is an opportunity to feel engaged much earlier on. You can do it all sorts of ways. The first most important thing is just your intention. To have this be a part of your consciousness, to be informed by the idea that this time of the womb is important, that your presence matters, and you can cause a positive effect on your child while they're in the womb. You can do that through your voice. You can do that through your touch. One way I used to do is I would put my hand on my wife's back, or sometimes if she was in the water, if we were in the pool, or you know, we go to hot springs sometimes, and I would hold my wife, and I would literally talk to the baby. I would sort of feel into the child, you know, my child, and say like, hey baby, do you want to experience my touch? And my wife's body would totally change. She would get soft and supple. You know, she was already soft, but she would kind of like zone out. It was like she went somewhere else, and I felt my child in my hands. I don't have any other way to explain that. I can't prove that other than to say it was, for me, real. And it helped me feel engaged and really to like get my love into my kid early on, which is what I wanted to do. So that's one way to do it. You can give your wife foot massages, you know, just talk to your kid through your wife. Be like, hey, how's it going, sweetie? You know, I'm here, I'm thinking about you, so excited to meet you in the flesh. It helps everybody, and it really helps you, because when that moment comes, when your child is born and they're in your arms for the first time, it will be incredible and new, but it will also be a continuation of a relationship and not just the beginning of a relationship. Because the truth is it is a continuation of a relationship that started a long time ago. And in my belief, you know, it can start for some men long before they even met the mom. So I hope that helps. I offer this to you to use in your own lives, and if you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me. I love to talk about this stuff. I love to be allies. I see men in my own private practice, and if you want any more information about that, you can go to my website, www.livingbridges.net, and there's all sorts of information there about programs that I'm offering, workshops, working with me privately or over Skype, and offering this to you in service. And I hope you have a great day, and looking forward to seeing you on the path in some way.